today. My name is Fiona and I am a part of the Student Services team at the University of Melbourne. So it's really, really great to be with you all here today. And if you're interested, obviously, in studying overseas for your tertiary studies, University of Melbourne is definitely a place to consider. And I'm going to go through a few reasons now. So thank you again for joining us. Yes.
Yeah, I'll just kind of introduce what's going on for everyone.
Sure.
College Fair, thank you so much for coming in. Today we have a couple different universities, but you are currently in the University of Melbourne room. And here we have Fiona, who will be talking about the University of Melbourne. If you have any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat. And then we will address the questions at the end of the talk, where I will be facilitating a discussion with Fiona. Thanks so much, Fiona.
Thank you, Lance. Yeah, thanks again, everyone, for joining today. So, as I said before, my name's Fiona. I'm part of the Student Services team at the University of Melbourne. And I just wanted to chat through a few reasons, first of all, of why it would be great for you guys to consider Melbourne for your future tertiary studies. So the University of Melbourne is located in Melbourne, Australia, obviously, just 8.5 hours from Manila. Melbourne is located on the southeast coast of Australia, and it's the second largest city in Australia after Sydney. So Melbourne has been voted the world's most livable city 7 years in a row. For the past two, it's been voted second, but only after Vienna in Austria. And it's also been voted the world's third most student-friendly city. So why is Melbourne such a great place to live and to study? Well, there's a few different reasons. It's a safe place to be, actually named the 5th safest city in the world. It's really multicultural, so you get to experience lots of different festivals and cuisines from all over the world in the one place. And if you love music or arts or sport, then you will love studying and living in Melbourne. Melbourne is the host to some amazing events. And if you like the tennis, like I do, the Australian Open every January each year. And also festivals like the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. So lots going on in Melbourne throughout the year. The other thing that students really love about living in Melbourne is it's really easy to get around. So we have got a great public transport system to get you from one city to the other. And if you prefer riding your bike, which is something I do to get to work each day, we have lots of bike lanes and paths. That's a really popular mode of transport among students. So Melburnians love to get out and about. So we're situated on Port Phillip Bay. We've got lots of great beaches that you can get away to really close to the city, or like this one here on the screen, or you can get away to a day trip or a weekend getaway like to the Great Ocean Road, which you can see here on the screen. So some pretty spectacular scenery really close to the city of Melbourne. We also have a big food culture in Melbourne. So we've got all these sort of city laneways, which lots of people enjoy eating out on. And as I mentioned before, Melbournians love sport and home to the Australian Football League, the AFL. So that's definitely an experience to have while living and studying in Melbourne. So the city itself is definitely a draw card for many international students, but another reason why students all over the world choose to come and study in Australia from overseas is our high quality education. So Australian leading universities are known as the Group of 8, and you can see those here on the screen. University of Melbourne is part of that group. And the Group of 8 can be likened to the Ivy League colleges, the leading universities in the US, and the Russell Group of universities in the UK. So every year, millions of people around the world rely on Australian discoveries and innovations. And I've just put up some of those here. So the black box flight recorder which is mandatory on all major aircraft throughout the world now. The electronic pacemaker as well. The bionic ear, which was actually, or cochlear ear, was invented at the University of Melbourne in the 1970s. And that's brought hearing to more than 180,000 deaf and partially deaf people around the world. Also ultrasound, Google Maps, Wi-Fi, all amazing inventions that have come out of Australian discoveries and innovations. So the University of Melbourne itself is the #1 ranked university in Australia and number 26 in the world on the US News and World 2020 ranking. But what we're actually even more proud of is that we're ranked #7 in the world for graduate employability. So what this means is that companies and organisations around the world love to employ graduates of the University of Melbourne. So as a student, you can be confident that your studies at the University of Melbourne will give you that extra edge and prepare you well to go into your career. So the University of Melbourne is a comprehensive university teaching a really broad range of disciplines. So you can see some of those on this slide, as well as their rankings as well. So ranging from business and economics to engineering and health. And the University of Melbourne is based, we have a number of different campuses. Our main campus is the Parkville campus. And you can see here, we're just it's actually just a 10-minute tram ride from the central business district of Melbourne, so the main city centre. So we're based right in the heart of Melbourne. We're also located right next to the Melbourne Biomedical Precinct, which is actually one of the world's leading biomedical precincts. So if you are interested in health or the health sciences, it's an amazing place to be studying. We have 6 other campuses in Victoria, including the South Bank campus, which is actually our state-of-the-art campus just based south of the city in Melbourne's Arts and Cultural Precinct, which also houses our Faculty of Fine Arts and Music. So the academic year at the University of Melbourne or in Australia is a little bit different to in the Philippines. So our semester starts in March each year and runs until June, our first semester. And our second semester then starts in July and runs until November. The other thing I would point out here is that an undergraduate degree at Melbourne, which is also known as a bachelor degree, is the first degree that you would usually undertake at university, and it's typically 3 years in length, unless you want to go on to an honours year. And then our graduate degrees can be anywhere between 1 to 4 years in length, depending on the area of study. So the Melbourne curriculum is a little bit different to other universities in Australia and the way they structure their curriculums. Ours a little more aligned to the way the leading universities in the US structure theirs. So we have our broad undergraduate degrees, and then at a graduate level, you then start to really specialise and get your accreditation. So a big feature of our curriculum at an undergraduate level is flexibility. But you do also get that depth of study in your major area of interest in your undergraduate degree. And then if there is a profession that you want to go on to, which requires accreditation, for example, engineering, teaching, law, and so forth, that's where you would do an extra level of study at a graduate level. So at an undergraduate level, we offer just 9 degrees. So 7 of those are in these areas of arts, biomedicine, commerce, design, fine arts, music, and science. And within those 7 degrees, 75% of what you're studying is focused on your core area of study. So, and these are majors and core subjects that for example, if you're studying commerce, would come from business and economics and so forth. 25% of your study comes from outside your core discipline. So something really different. For example, if you are studying biomedicine, you also might pick up subjects in music, for example. But a big part of our undergraduate degree is that it can be flexible and you can design it the way you want based on your interests and kind of where you want to go with your career. So after your undergraduate degree, as you can see here, you can go straight into the workforce, or as I mentioned before, you can go on to one of our specialist graduate programs or a research degree if you're wanting to focus on research. So just moving on to our next slide here. So students entering the university do so either by studying the national curriculum in the Philippines and then completing a foundation studies program. So our partner is Trinity College Foundation Studies, which is based on the University of Melbourne campus. The other option is to come through to study an international curriculum like the ID diploma or A-levels, and then you can pathway directly into an undergraduate degree. If you are studying the Philippines national curriculum, you do need to do a foundation program first, or you can also actually study a first year of an undergraduate degree elsewhere and then transfer to us. That's also an option. So if I'll look here at the next slide, you can see each of our core bachelor degrees have lots of different majors to choose from. So for example, within the Bachelor of Commerce, you can study things like economics and marketing and management. In our Bachelor of Design, you can study things around the built environment like architecture or engineering or planning or urban design. And we also have things like, if you're interested in production design or graphic design. So those are the sort of majors available within design. We also have 2 specialist bachelor's degree in agriculture and oral health, and they're very focused and their curriculum is pretty much set out. We have some great outcomes as well for those 2 degrees into work straight from your undergraduate degree. So if I move on here, I'll just show an example of the number of majors available in the Bachelor of Science. So as you can see here, there's 42 majors ranging from zoology to neuroscience to cell and development biology, physics, pharmacology. So a huge range of majors to choose from in the Bachelor of Science. And you don't actually need to lock in your major until your final year, into your 3rd year. So in your 1st and 2nd year, you can explore different areas of science before you settle on your major area that you want to study. And I'm going to show you now, this is an example of a course plan in the Bachelor of Science, just to give you an idea of how it's structured. This is an example of someone doing a major in neuroscience. So as I mentioned before, we've got 2 semesters every year. And in every semester, you do 4 subjects. So you will have remembered before, hopefully, that I was saying that 75% of your degree is focused on, in this example, science subjects. So this student is doing some subjects that are required for the major subjects that this person needs to undertake in their final year, and then also some elective subjects in science as well. And then 25% of the degree is what we call breadth subjects. So this is subjects outside of the subdiscipline of science, and this student has chosen to study some things around cultural communication, languages in society. So this student is obviously also interested in communication, language and culture, and using that to complement their degree in science. But you can actually put in there whatever you want. If you're interested in studying another language, for example, if you're interested in continuing an interest in music, or acting, or just trying something completely different, maybe it's some business subjects, that's the way you can really design and make the degree your own at the University of Melbourne. So just moving on to our next slide. So as I mentioned before, for students who wish to go into careers that require accreditation, you will combine your undergraduate degree with a graduate degree. And this is some examples here. So for example, if you are wanting to become an engineer, you can combine either a Bachelor of Biomedicine, a Bachelor of Design, or a Bachelor of Science. If you do your engineering major in one of these degrees, then you can go on to the Master of Engineering for another 2 years. And after 5 years, become an accredited engineer. Same for law, so any undergraduate degree, and then go on to the Juris Doctor to gain your accreditation to practice law. And these are some of the other pathways: medicine, psychology, teaching. So any undergraduate degree for medicine, and then on to the Doctor of Medicine. So that's a little bit of an idea of how the University of Melbourne degrees are structured. Moving on now. So as I mentioned before, it's really about designing the degree the way you want, and you can do that through different ways, through taking on, for example, a concurrent diploma in either computing, languages, music or mathematical sciences. That's an option. As I mentioned before, those breadth subjects allow you to take on subjects outside of your home faculty or your major area of study. And that's where you can explore interests that you may not have traditionally been able to do within your field of study, or you may want to develop skills that will help in your future career. The other great thing about studying at Melbourne is our internships and industry projects. So, for example, we have the Bachelor of Science, Science and Technology internship, or the Design internship in the Bachelor of Design. So these allow you to really connect with employers and experience what it's like to actually work with a company that you're interested in going into. We also have industry projects. For example, in the Bachelor of Commerce, you can enter a case competition and be given a problem to solve from someone in a particular business, and then work with a team to come up with an answer to that problem and present it back to the business. So some exciting ways to really kind of make your degree come alive. And of course, clubs and societies. So these clubs, and I think I've got something coming up as well, and also global study opportunities, but I'll go on here. Oh, this is the internships that I was mentioning before. We've got different partners with the partners of the University of Melbourne. So we're able to connect our students with. And these are the clubs and societies that I wanted to kind of show you. So those clubs and societies can be related to your course. For example, the Science Student Society, they can be related to food and beverage. We've got chocolate lovers societies. We've got culture and language clubs, and music and dance, sports and games, and so forth. You can join the snowboarders club like these guys here. And we even have special interest clubs like the Potterheads Club. If you want to learn to play Quidditch, you can. So lots to get involved to really make your University of Melbourne experience amazing. So, and just going on, so the entry requirements. So the first thing you need to do when you're considering one of our undergraduate degrees is to look at the minimum entry score. So these are all listed on our study website, and I'll show you some of those entry scores in a moment. So for some qualifications, there are guaranteed entry for international students. So these include if you're studying the Australian Year 12 in the Philippines, the IB diploma, GCA levels, or if you come through the Trinity College Foundation Studies program, we also have guaranteed entry scores as well. The other thing that you need to consider is the subject prerequisites for the degree that you're interested in. So these subjects prerequisites are important because they ensure that you have foundational knowledge required for that degree that you're applying for, and you also need to demonstrate competency in those subjects. So there are often minimum scores for those subjects. So that's the other thing to look at. And then any other additional requirements, such as an interview or a portfolio. And for the University of Melbourne, the only undergraduate degrees that do have these additional requirements are the Bachelor of Fine Arts and the Bachelor of Music, which have audition requirements or portfolio requirements. So they're all on our website. The other thing is the English language requirements, which I'll talk to a bit more in a moment. And the other thing is if you can use your qualification for direct entry to the University of Melbourne. And as I mentioned before, for the Philippines national curriculum, you would need to complete a foundation studies program in order to become eligible. And our foundation studies partner is Trinity College Foundation Studies, and it's co-located on our campus in Melbourne. And Trinity offers those guaranteed entry places into Melbourne, provided the students meet our entry requirements from their foundation studies program. So the other thing I just wanted to chat through quickly is our entry requirements. So you can see those here. You can see here the prerequisite subjects that are required for each of our degrees. So mathematics is something that we do require for our agriculture degree, our commerce degree, and our science and our biomedicine degree. We do require English for all our degrees, and I'll show you the way you can meet those entry requirements in a moment. But you can see here, these are the guaranteed scores for these particular programs here. Might just take, so meeting the English language requirements. So you can do that in a number of different ways. You can meet the requirements by achieving the required score in approved final year English subject, for example, IB English, at a certain level or higher. Or you can do it through satisfying English language requirements through an English language test like TOEFL or IELTS Pearson test of English or Cambridge English. And those I think I have those scores here, so you can get an idea of what those required scores are. So just so you're aware as well is that in regards to the application process, the University of Melbourne, so your selection for most of our undergraduate degrees will be based solely on your academic performance and your English language proficiency. So unlike many colleges in the US, we don't require the submission of personal statements or recommendation letters or any essays, nor do we require any additional criteria such as extracurricular activities as a part of the application process. We're purely looking at your academic performance in your high school and your English language proficiency. So it is a bit more streamlined in that sense. There are 2 degrees, and I mentioned them before, at the University of Melbourne where we do consider additional criteria for admission, and that's the Bachelor of Music and the Bachelor of Fine Arts. With these degrees, because they're talent-based admission, there'll be extra requirements such as an audition or an interview or portfolio required along with demonstrated academic performance for admission into those particular 2-degree programs. And the final thing I just wanted to touch on before I bring Lance back is just scholarships. So many of our future students are obviously keen to know about scholarships on offer and how to apply for those. So we do have scholarships available for international students, and you can see the details of the various university and faculty scholarships on our website. Just to speak generally about scholarships, they are awarded at the University of Melbourne based on academic merit. So there's no separate application form to be completed to be considered for a scholarship. There are also I should say that the scholarships are quite competitive. So that's also something to consider, and it is dependent on the caliber of the application pool and how many students are applying to study at the University of Melbourne. They're generally awarded as a way to reduce your tuition fees and can be awarded in varying amounts. So 100% fee remission, 50% fee remission, 25%, or as a single payment as well, like $5,000 to $10,000 payments. So that's kind of how we award our scholarships. And so, yeah, just to be aware that they are really competitive. The other thing I do recommend our students look at are our residential college scholarships. So these are a way to reduce the cost of living in Melbourne. So that's also something to investigate. So just to give you an idea for these University of Melbourne scholarships, you need to be in your secondary school result, achieve something that places you in the top 3% of your cohort. So for example, for the IB, the International Baccalaureate, a score of at least 42. And then for things like our foundation studies, an overall result around 98. So that's just to give you an idea of the requirements for those scholarships. I might finish it here, so Lance, that we can see if there's some questions from the audience.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, I got a direct message from one of our students. So since most graduations in the Philippines happen in June, are students allowed to start within the second semester? I also know that my friends who wanted to go to Australia had like some problems with that. So Fiona, if you could give us some insight, that would be amazing.
Yeah, no worries. That's a great question, Lance. So thank you for that. Most of our students coming from the Philippines do actually choose to have a bit of a gap before they study with us and come and join with us in March of the following year, and maybe do some work or something else in between and prepare for that move. It is actually possible, like some students do get themselves organised in time and do come to us at that middle year. Most of our undergraduate degrees, not all, but most of them do have a commencement date for the July intake. The turnaround time though is quite tight. So most students tend to just like to just take it a bit easier and get themselves organised and have a break before they come to us.
Thanks so much, Fiona. We currently don't have any questions on the chat, so I will give people an opportunity to type questions in our lots. We've actually got our first one from Nayla. So Nayla asks, how many international students do you accept on average?
Wow, so we have thousands and thousands of international students coming to the University of Melbourne every year. So we are a really big university. We have about, I think it's about 60,000 students at any one time at the University of Melbourne, and up to 40% of those can be international students. So we are a really international university. We do have students coming from all over the world, including the Philippines. So yeah, it's a pretty exciting place to be with lots of international students, but also lots of Australian students choosing to come to study with us. So you get to mix with lots of different cultures, and so that makes it a pretty exciting place to study, learning from lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds.
Yeah, so Julia then asks, is there any required grade for the prerequisite course? I think she might be referring to the foundation course.
Great idea. And I might just check, I might just stop sharing and see if I've got a slide that I can show you on that. So just a moment, I'll find that for you. Oh, I don't think I've got it here. There are definitely required scores for Trinity Foundation program, but what you can do, you can actually, that's all online. So if you Google it, you will definitely find that information out. So it's Trinity College Foundation program. So I can actually get you the link and I'll put it in the chat actually for everybody. How's that?
Yeah, that would be definitely very helpful for people. So our next question is regarding English language requirements. Is the Duolingo test an acceptable qualification for the English to fulfill the English requirement?
Sorry, say that again. I'm just going to pop this in the chat. Sorry about that. Sorry, can you ask me that again, Lance? Apologies.
So Michelle asks if the Duolingo test could be is acceptable as a qualification for the English language requirement.
Oh, okay. The dual English test, the ones that we do accept.
Sorry.
The
Duolingo test. So Duolingo is an application that administers, it's free, and I think it administers tests. I know some universities allow it, but I was
sure. Yeah, the ones that are our approved English language tests are IELTS, TOEFL, and we also accept the internet-based one, TOEFL, as well, the Pearson test of English and Cambridge English. So they're actually all on our website. You can check those out as well.
Okay, our next question is about kind of application cycles. So is it possible to apply for 2022? So I'm assuming that's next year's intake, but then go to school the following year?
Yes, so I'd usually recommend that you apply for the intake that you're interested in studying in, rather than applying and deferring, if I'm understanding the question correctly. So yeah, usually I would always suggest apply for that intake that you want. The way it works is that we would usually like you can apply at any time. So you can apply now and say you're interested in the July intake in 2022. What happens though is we would assess first applications for the next intake, because we're getting a lot of applications all the time. So we always assess the applications for the upcoming intake, but you're definitely welcome to put them in ahead of time. You just might not hear back as quickly just because we prioritize the ones for the for the upcoming intake.
All right. Maria then asks, does the University of Melbourne offer scholarships for graduate students taking up a master's degree?
Yeah, great question. Yes, we absolutely do have scholarships available for graduate students as well. So there's a different, if you Google on our website, you'll find an undergraduate international scholarships. You would find those. And it's also dependent on what area of study you're interested in going into. So different faculties at the University of Melbourne would offer different scholarships. So definitely worth checking out our scholarships website. I'll put that in the chat as well, just so that you can Google based on your interest. Any other questions there, Lance?
Yeah, there are so many questions. What is the estimated value of living costs in Melbourne?
Oh, that's a great question. I do actually have a slide on that, so I might bring that up just so that we can all see that together. Bring that up now. Okay. Again, now I'm having issues with my slides. Hang on a second. All right. Okay, I think I've got it now. Tell me if you can see that, Lance.
You can see it, yeah.
Right. So yeah, the cost of living in Melbourne, as probably anywhere, can really vary depending on your lifestyle. It's around, like we say, around $20,000 That's meant to be 20,000. I'm not sure, there's an extra zero there, but that's around 20,000 per year. But really does depend on your lifestyle. This gives you an idea of the types of costs you might have. Obviously, you also need to consider accommodation as well, overseas student health cover, and living expenses such as food and travel. We do have some amazing, obviously accommodation can be a big part of the living cost in Melbourne. We do have some amazing student apartments that are located all around the University of Melbourne campus. And we also have, based on our campus, residential colleges. Residential colleges can look like often the most expensive option, but our residential colleges have some amazing scholarships available to international students. So definitely recommend when you're ready to kind of make a move to Melbourne, if that's what you end up deciding on, definitely have a look at the residential colleges and some of the scholarships that they are offering to international students, because that can really subsidise your cost of living in Melbourne. The other thing is with our student apartments right near the city, right near the campus in Parkville, we have places like this, the Vic Market. So a lot of our students would go to the market to get their food. We have lots of students would share the cost, like share cooking together. We do also have lots of free food available on campus. Like a lot of our clubs and societies are always doing things like a barbecue, a sausage sizzle, like all that sort of thing. So lots of ways to kind of subsidize your costs while you're living here. The other thing I should say is that international students are able to work up to 20 hours a week while they're studying in Australia on your student visa. So a lot of students do get part-time work. We have a lot of our students in things like hospitality and so forth. So lots of, and the money in Australia is quite good from part-time work, casual work. So that's also a way to help, with your cost of living expenses while in Melbourne.
Yeah, so Karen asks, for the opening of borders for international students, how would lessons be delivered if it's still closed? Is it more likely for them to be reopened come 2022?
Yeah, really great question, Lance. Yeah, we are really following the advice from the Australian government. So we actually probably know as much as you do at the moment. We're just waiting and hoping that those borders open up for next year. Unfortunately, we need to plan for anything. So at the moment, in any of our current international students and some of our Australian students based around the world are all studying online. So the way we're doing it is we're delivering sort of dual kind of delivery, we call it. So some of those subjects are online and some are on campus if students can be on campus. So we definitely continue to offer that as long as we need to, so that, yeah, we can still have our international student cohort studying with us. Yeah, but really hoping that, borders will open in the near future. But we're just waiting on advice from the Australian government, and then we can make that happen. But yeah, at the moment, our international students, if they're not already in Melbourne, are studying online, and we've really adapted all our programs to be able to deliver our programs online, except for, I think, fine arts and music. Those two courses aren't online, but the rest of our courses in the undergrad space are online.
Yeah, thanks. Erica asks, as an IB student, final grades go out in July, actually, right? So when applying,
Yeah.
does the University of Melbourne accept predicted grades, or do we have to wait until the final grades come out?
Yeah, great question. We can look at your grades, and if you've got a predicted grade of like 3 points higher then what's required for that particular degree. We can look at that. If you're linked to an approved school, we have some schools that are on some approved lists, then I think it's 2 points higher. We can do that, yes, and it's possible. And what you can do is actually, as soon as those final results are released, if you give permission for those to be released to us by the IB board, then we can get those straight away and fast track finalizing that for you.
Maria asks if she wants to study at should they apply and study to Trinity College Foundation program first, or should we just directly apply to the University of Melbourne?
Yeah, great question. So if you have studied or are studying the Philippines national curriculum, definitely apply to Trinity first. You can nominate, it's like a packaged offer. So you can nominate at that point the degree that you're interested in at the University of Melbourne, but you can change that as you go along. So you don't need to lock that in straight away. But yes, you would apply to Trinity first.
Okay. Maria asks if they can take the foundation program while finishing the last year in high school.
You can actually choose to start your Trinity program, I think, even before you've finished high school. Usually students would do like start with us, so they do maybe year 11 and then come to us instead of year 12. So instead of their final year, they would do the Trinity program. So it's probably best I can connect you, actually, I might put in the chat, the contact at Trinity, so he can respond to any of your questions. I will get that for you and put it in the chat.
Yeah, while that goes on, Maria Angelica asks what common mistakes that applicants usually commit are.
Common mistakes from applicants, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, I would say the main thing is having everything completed in your application. So you can apply direct to the University of Melbourne, or you can actually use one of our approved education agents in the Philippines. So we have IDP Education and COCOS. Both of those are our approved education agents, and they can actually help you through the whole process, so that you know, they've been trained by us, they know our application process, they know our degrees, and they can actually step you through the whole process, and there's no cost to you to use one of our education agents. That's a service that we provide. So definitely recommend getting in touch with one of our education agents, just to avoid, you know, sometimes, as you know, the application process for a foreign university can be quite complicated. But if you use the services of an education agent, they can help you through that process, and it is a free service.
Yeah. So a follow-up question to that is, if someone wishes to finish their high school studies in their current school, will they still have the chance to apply? Will they still have the chance to apply to University of Melbourne? Or, oh, I see. So I'm trying to comprehend this question. I can just answer that question based on the information that you kind of talked about. Other than that, someone asks, they just want to clarify if they've accomplished their first year of college in the Philippines. Does that mean that they don't need to take foundation studies anymore and they just apply as a first year?
Yeah, so I'll try, I think I'm answering this correctly, but so basically, if you have completed an international curriculum, you can apply directly to the University of Melbourne. So that's like the IB diploma or A levels. If you're studying an international curriculum at an international school in the Philippines, if you are studying the national curriculum, you can complete your studies at your current school and then come to Trinity and do your Trinity Foundation program with us, and then and that's where you have a guaranteed entry if you achieve a certain required score within